The town of Silt clung to the edge of Route 66 like a withered hand. Dust devils danced across the deserted main street. Buildings stood empty, windows like vacant eyes. On the outskirts, almost swallowed by the encroaching desert, sat Greg's used cars. The lot was a graveyard of forgotten dreams. Rusting hulks glinted ominously in the afternoon sun. A faded neon sign sputtered, casting a sickly yellow glow over the scene. This was a place where hope went to die, and where something sinister lay dormant, waiting to be awakened. Clara, new to Silt and desperate for transport, felt a tremor of unease as she steered her old pickup truck onto the lot. There was a stillness here that felt unnatural, a silence so profound it hummed in her ears. She parked, stepped out, and the air itself seemed to grow colder. This was not a place for the faint of heart, but Clara, fueled by necessity, pressed on. Greg emerged from the shadows of the office. He was a gaunt figure, his face a roadmap of hard living. His eyes, like chips of obsidian, seemed to bore into Clara, assessing her desperation. He moved with a strange fluidity, almost reptilian, that set her on edge. "Looking for something reliable?" Clara said, her voice barely a whisper in the oppressive silence. Greg's lips stretched into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He gestured towards the back of the lot, where a sleek black car sat gleaming under the anemic light. "Got just the thing." Clara followed, her unease growing with each step. The car was a 1957 Bel Air, its chrome gleaming like a predator's grin. It was beautiful, alluring, and yet there was something deeply unsettling about it. Something felt wrong, deeply wrong. Ignoring the prickling on the back of her neck, Clara agreed to a test drive. She needed this car. She needed to believe that this town, this life, could offer her something more. She climbed into the driver's seat, unaware that she was sealing a pact with something dark and ancient. The engine roared to life with a sound like a primal scream. The Bel Air moved with a predatory grace, hugging the curves of the desert road. Clara should have felt exhilarated, but the feeling of wrongness only intensified. It was as if the car itself were alive, its power thrumming through her very being. The scent of dust and old leather filled the car, tinged with something metallic, like blood. The radio crackled to life, a haunting melody playing on a loop, a song she'd never heard but couldn't escape. The world outside the windows blurred, the desert landscape morphing into something sinister and unreal. Clara tried to turn the radio off, but it wouldn't respond. Her fingers tightened on the steering wheel, her knuckles white. Fear, cold and sharp, began to claw its way into her heart. This car, this beautiful, terrible machine, was no ordinary vehicle. It was a vessel, she realized with growing horror, and she was trapped inside. The drive back to the dealership was a blur. Clara stumbled out of the car, her legs shaky. She tried to explain, to tell Greg about the radio, the smell, the overwhelming sense of dread, but the words caught in her throat. He just smiled that knowing smile and handed her the keys. "She's all yours," he rasped, his voice like dry leaves skittering across pavement. That night, lying in bed, Clara couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The radio's melody echoed in her mind, a haunting refrain that chased away sleep. When she finally drifted off, it was into a restless slumber plagued by nightmares. She saw shadowy figures lurking in the rearview mirror, heard whispers in the static of the radio. The smell of blood and dust followed her, clinging to her skin, invading her dreams. The car was calling to her, its siren song growing louder, more insistent with each passing night. Days turned into weeks, and the strange occurrences intensified. The radio switched on by itself, always tuned to that same haunting melody. The car seemed to have a life of its own, its engine purring to life at the slightest touch. Clara tried to stay away, to resist its pull, but the car had a hold on her, a dark fascination she couldn't escape. Driven by fear and morbid curiosity, she returned to the dealership, demanding answers from Greg. He met her gaze, a flicker of something like respect in his eyes. He led her to his office, the walls adorned with faded photographs of vintage cars, their chrome gleaming like teeth in the dim light. "That car," he began, his voice low and gravelly, "it has a history." He told her of the car's original owner, a man consumed by jealousy and rage. A man who had driven the Bel Air into the desert one starless night, his wife by his side, her screams swallowed by the wind. Her body was never found, but her spirit, Greg said, her spirit remained trapped within the vehicle's steel frame, seeking release, revenge. Terror tightened its grip on Clara. The nightmares grew more vivid, the whispers in the static more distinct. She saw the ghostly figure of the murdered wife, her eyes burning with a cold fire, her hand outstretched, beckoning. The scent of blood and dust became overpowering, a suffocating presence within the car. One night, the dream shifted. She wasn't in her bed anymore, but in the driver's seat of the Bel Air. The desert stretched out before her, endless and unforgiving. The ghostly woman sat beside her, her touch like ice, her voice a mournful whisper in Clara's ear. "He made me disappear," the ghost whispered, her voice filled with a chilling sadness. "Now, he wants to take you too." Clara woke up with a gasp, her heart pounding against her ribs. The line between dreams and reality was blurring, and she knew that she had to break free from the car's hold before it consumed her completely. Driven by terror and a desperate hope for survival, Clara decided to rid herself of the cursed car. She drove, not back to Greg, but into the heart of the desert, following a road she'd never seen before. A road that shimmered into existence under the relentless desert sun. The Bel Air surged forward as if eager to embrace its fate. The radio blared, the ghostly melody reaching a fever pitch. The desert heat pressed down on her, suffocating, relentless. She saw the ghostly woman again, her form solidifying in the passenger seat, her eyes filled with a terrible urgency. "He's coming!" the woman shrieked, her voice raw with terror. "Get out! Get out now!" Clara slammed on the brakes, the car skidding to a halt. She threw open the door and stumbled out, just as the ghostly figure of a man materialized behind the wheel. His eyes, burning with an unholy light, met hers for a fleeting moment, and then he, the car, and the ghostly woman were gone, swallowed by the blinding desert light. Clara was found days later wandering delirious and sunburnt, miles from where the car had disappeared. She couldn't explain what had happened, only muttering about a ghost, a car, a lost highway that led nowhere and everywhere. No one believed her. The Bel Air was never seen again. Some say it's still out there, cruising the back roads of the desert, its ghostly passengers trapped within its steel cage, forever searching for release. And Greg? He remained in his dilapidated dealership, a knowing smile playing on his lips, his eyes reflecting the secrets of the desert and the souls claimed by the haunted cars he sold. The dealership on Route 66 still stands, a beacon to the lost and the desperate. But beware, traveler, if you're ever passing through Silt and see a sleek black 1957 Bel Air gleaming under the desert sun. Turn away. Some roads, some deals, are best left untraveled. Some stories are meant to remain untold, echoing in the silence of the desert night. The echo of Clara's terror serves as a chilling reminder that some bargains are best left unmade.